Chief.
Yeah, I think she already got it. I don't think you did that on it.
American Idol results at 7. Just saying.
Ruth?
American Idol results at 7.
You got your DVR shot?
See how his proclamation is Evelyn Wood speaker.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this regular meeting of the Temple City Council for Thursday, April the 18th. If you please rise. Our invocation will be given by Temple Fire and Rescue's Training Officer Thomas Peckall, and our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by KTB Executive Director Tanya Gray.
Please bow your heads with me. Almighty and ever-living God, we ask you to be with the leaders of our city, state, and country today and every day. Give them wisdom and courage to make correct decisions. We ask you to be with the community of West as they struggle with loss from yesterday's explosion. Comfort those who are hurting and grieving. Let them feel the warmth of your love. Watch over and keep safe the rescuers who are working to assist those in need. Father, we are thankful for the many blessings you have bestowed on us. May we never forget the gift of your Son, Jesus Christ. May our thoughts, words, and actions always be pleasing to you. We offer these prayers in your most holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Tanya. Again, welcome everyone. We have a meeting this evening, and we're going to start off with several proclamations and recognitions. So if I can ask Val Roaming to please come forward. He's our city arborist, and we are going to recognize a very special day in our community in which historically Temple has had a very important role to play. And Val, welcome. Glad to have you here. And, let me offer this proclamation. If you please accept this. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a day be set aside for the planting of trees. And this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. Whereas in Texas in 1889, the citizens of Temple conceived an Arbor Day resolution, which the Texas legislature passed into law and is now observed throughout the nation and the world. Whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by the wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. Trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. Whereas Arbor Day is America's national tree holiday, a day set aside to plant ceremonial trees, educate the public about the importance of trees, and honor the vital role trees play in every day of our lives. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of our business areas, and beautify our community. And now therefore I, William A. Jones III, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, May the 1st of 2013 as Arbor Day in the City of Temple, Texas. And I urge every citizen to recognize that trees are one of the most valuable natural resources and one of Texas's greatest assets. And I further urge all citizens to share in the responsibility of their protection. In testimony whereof I witness my hand and the seal of the City of Temple on this, the 18th day of April of 2013. And in addition to presenting this, also we've been recognized once again by the Arbor Day Foundation as a Tree City community for our commitment to urban forestry in 2012. And much of that's thanks to your leadership along with the many volunteers we have in this community, working together to make this a beautiful city using trees. So, Val, thank you very much. I appreciate your work for Peter. Next, we get the opportunity to recognize the brains and many times the beauty and professionalism, first and foremost, of a significant part of our staff. And we have many of them here today to recognize, and that's the administrative professionals that we have in our community. And if I could ask those individuals who are administrative professionals to please come forward so we can recognize you for your efforts in the city at this time. Where are the guys? Lacey said earlier, we asked about that. Oh, I can't say that? Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for what you do for our community and for our departments within the city. We are very, very appreciative for the many efforts that you provide and the support that you provide to our management and to all of those in our community. Let me offer this proclamation in recognition of what you do. Whereas, in keeping with the tradition of their profession, administrative professionals are accepting vital responsibilities and are performing important roles in commerce, industry, and government. Whereas the efforts of these professionals and their contributions are significant, citizens depend on the municipal administrative professionals for the role they play in public services. Whereas the work of administrative professionals today requires knowledge and expertise in communications, computer software, office technology, project management, organization, customer service, and other crucial office responsibilities. And whereas Administrative Professionals Week 2013 is focused honoring the office professionals who make offices work, and it reflects the integral and central role that office professionals play in modern businesses. Now therefore I, William A. Jones III, Mayor of the City of Temple, do hereby proclaim April 21st through 24th as Administrative Professionals Week in the City of Temple, Texas. And I urge all citizens to recognize the invaluable contribution of administrative professionals in the workplace and to express appreciation to them for all they do to make our offices run more smoothly and efficiently. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand and the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, on this, the 18th day of April of 2013. While I only have one proclamation, y'all get to pass around and share. We have a rose for everybody. So, let me present the proclamation to you, if I might, and I'll hand you the first word.
Thank you.
Give me the pleasure of presenting roses to each of you. I would appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks. And the next two proclamations we have are both going to be presented to our Executive Director of KTB, Ms. Tanya Gray, and she's got some folks with her to join her in these recognitions. I'm going to present this, and I'll let you tell us about each one of these successively.
I have a spokesperson.
Oh, you do? Okay, all right, well, good. Well, we'll do this first, and then we're going to do Global Youth first? Okay, great. Whereas Global Youth Service Day celebrates and mobilizes millions of children and youth who improve their communities each day of the year through service and service learning projects. Whereas the Community Supervision and Corrections Department provides a community service-based program encouraging juveniles to be involved in the community beautification and service projects. Whereas Keep Temple Beautiful and the City of Temple Parks and Leisure Services Department utilize the Community Supervision and Corrections Department in initiatives that better the City of Temple. Whereas in honor of Global Youth Service Day of 2013, the Community Supervision and Corrections Department is assisting Keep Temple Beautiful with the e-waste collection on Earth Day, April 20th, as well as helping Ray Allen Elementary School with their Secret Garden project on April 27th, due to a grant received by the Texas Community Service Association. Whereas Keep Temple Beautiful and the City of Temple applaud the Community Supervision and Corrections Department for empowering youth to find their voice, take action, and make real changes in our community. And now therefore I, William A. Jones III, Mayor of the City of Temple, do hereby proclaim Saturday, April 20th as Global Youth Service Day in the City of Temple, Texas. And I urge all citizens to recognize the social, economic, environmental, and community benefits derived from the work done by the Community Supervision and Corrections Department. In testimony whereof I witness my hand and the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, on this for the 20th day of April of 2013. Ms. Tanya, thank you for the work you do. And Joey, thanks very much for being here. We appreciate it very much. Here's a mic for you both. It's on.
The National Youth Global Service, this is the 25th year of its existence. And basically, it's international. Basically, as it stands today, there is over 2,000 projects in over 100 countries as we stand. Bell County Juvenile Services every year works out with Temple, Keep Temple Beautiful to find projects that will help to beautify the City of Temple. Last year, it was the e-waste project. This year, it's going to be the Secret Garden project over at Ray Allen Elementary School, which will hopefully service the community not only with food, but also with beautiful plants they can use. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Joy and CSCD has been working with us for quite a while, many years, and they do such wonderful jobs. They educate the youth, and they let them know why they're here doing such projects. And so instead of a punishment, it's actually a treat. And so they learn, and they're excited about it, and that's what we want them to be. So he's actually helping us on a couple of projects. Electronic waste, which you will learn about in a few minutes, along with Ray Allen's Secret Garden project. So we thank you, we applaud you for your work, and we truly appreciate you.
You're welcome.
And the next recognition is also involved with our Keep Temple Beautiful group. And let me say, we had a little project the other day before I present this one, where TXU Energy, in conjunction with the Tree Foundation and Keep Temple Beautiful and Parks and Leisure Services, planted 27 trees on Canyon Creek Drive. And it was a project that came about very short term, but Representative Ralph Sheffield turned TXU Energy onto us, and we coordinated. Tanya, most importantly, coordinated with, got all the details worked out, and then Ken Sikora's department and came together, helped us get all of those trees planted, got prepped for us to be able to go out and put a little mulch on those trees and claim for having planted all those trees. But it was a great project. It finished about 6 months in advance, a project that we were working on in Keep Temple Beautiful for the community, and it finished out all of the landscaping for Canyon Creek Drive. So all we have to do now is just finish the irrigation, which is all funded and everything. It just takes a little bit of time. But that was a great project. Tanya, thank you for your work on that project. It came together very quickly. I know it was stressful until it happened, but it was very, very well done. So thank you for that.
And it offset the cost that the city and KTV was going to have to pay, thousands of dollars. So we truly appreciate TXU. We appreciate the Parks Department because they did an awesome job and most of the work. So I thank you, Parks. I thank you, TXU.
Yep. And so now we have one more recognition for an event that's coming up on Saturday in conjunction with Earth Day. So, whereas Earth Day is an annual day on which events are held worldwide to demonstrate support for environmental protection that inspires awareness and appreciation for the Earth's natural environment. Whereas Keep Temple Beautiful Keep Temple Beautiful's actions of preventing waste, recycling, and teaching to reuse while keeping toxic materials out of the environment is a cumulative part of the solution towards protecting the city of Temple. Whereas electronic waste disposal is dedicated to eliminating all electronic-based products from our landfills, and Keep Temple Beautiful, in partnership with Electronic Waste Disposal, are conducting E-Waste on Earth Day, Saturday, April 20th of 2013. Whereas this event will reduce the risk of hazardous electronic materials while providing the opportunity to reduce the carbon footprint and conserve valuable natural resources. And whereas the City of Temple hereby encourages its residents, businesses, and institutions to use Earth Day to celebrate the Earth and to commit to building a sustainable and green economy by recycling electronic waste. Now therefore, I, William A. Jones III, Mayor of the City of Temple, do hereby proclaim Saturday, April 20th of 2013 as Earth Day in the City of Temple, Texas. And I encourage all citizens, neighboring cities, and businesses to participate in this e-waste event to properly dispose of all electronic goods and household items which will make a difference in our community. In testimony whereof, I witness my hand and the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, for the 20th day of April of 2013. Once again, thank you for your leadership and bringing us another great program to benefit our community.
Hello again. We celebrate Earth Day every year, and we've been doing the electronic recycling for about 2 years now. We've been working with Gerardo and his company, Electronic Waste Disposal, and we've discovered that you guys want those more than annually. So we have started to do them biannually, and we are thankful to Gerardo for coming in and doing it free of charge for us. We're actually having the event this Saturday, April 20th, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Holy Trinity High School, and that is 6680 West Adams, I believe. And so 6601, I believe, West Adams, but you know what it is, we live in Temple. But anyway, Gerardo, tell you a little bit about his company, what they do, and regardless of if you have a computer and the desk needs cleaning up, Gerardo will let you know that is very safe to do with his company. And his company is recycling everything that you guys bring to us. So they're not just disposing, they're recycling as well. And so that's what we want them to do, and we appreciate it.
Yes, we recycle everything from plastics to electronics. Everything we recycle. We do everything for raw materials, commodities. Sorry guys. We'll be at the Holy Trinity Christian from 9 to 2 this Saturday. If we recycle anything that's battery operated or anything that's plugged in, from TVs, any computers, we destroy all the hard drives, anything like that. It's free of charge, like Tommy was saying, and we would like for everybody, the community, to come and support. Last year, for KTB and Electronic Waste Disposal, we disposed over 21,000 pounds of electronics for KTB. So
guys did good.
So that's pretty good. Hopefully we can do 40,000 plus, or the more we educate people, the more we're understanding why we recycle electronics. It's the purpose, because it's just basically it's supported by manufacturers. That's why if you notice your phones, everything, it's made of different materials. So it goes down to the commodities, and then goes down to refineries, and then goes back to the manufacturers. It's just basically a cycle, and that's what we do. We dispose of it correctly.
And when you say this, the more you recycle, you get acclimated to the process, and it becomes natural to you. And so the way this came about is I the board member on Keep Texas Beautiful Board, and she was actually a partner with Gerardo. And one of the plans that we thought we could do for the 330 affiliates was to actually try and do a program that would help them out in recycling in their cities with electronics. And so Gerardo and Joe came forward, and they decided to do this for free of charge for the city of Temple. And so we do appreciate them. We thank you so much for your hard work. And please come out for our e-recycling event on Saturday. Thank you.
Tanya, thank you very much. Gerardo and Sandy, thank you for making your company available to us and being part of our community. Next item on our agenda is an opportunity for public comment. Citizens who desire to address the council on...
We have another recognition.
I got him. Okay, sorry. Back up. Item E, number 3, sorry. Recognize Kristen Moore, that's a very important, for her quick actions that limited fire damage to West Avenue T Church of Christ. Thank you very much, Lacey. Chief Wallace, if you'll do that recognition for us, please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to recognize one of our fine, upstanding young citizens, Kristen Moeller, if she would come forward. I'd like to share with you an event that took place on Monday afternoon, April the 1st. 16-year-old Kristen Moeller was riding with her father, who was taking her to driver's education training. While on the road, Kristen smelled the odor of wood smoke from something burning in the neighborhood. She insisted that her father call authorities to report that something was wrong. Based on the phone call, one of our engine companies was dispatched to the area of South 43rd Street and West Avenue T to search for the smoke source. The crew diligently searched the neighborhood comprised of homes and open fields before they checked West Avenue T Church of Christ. Upon looking through the front door of the entryway, they observed the burning debris on the floor and obvious ceiling damage. They forced entry into the building and quickly extinguished the attic fire. It was our opinion that the actions prevented a major fire damage to the West Avenue T Church of Christ building. Kristen is a member of the department's Junior Fire Cadet Program. She has served as a counselor and has helped work with the younger participants as they have learned fire safety, the importance of working with others, making good choices, and respect. It is my pleasure to present Kristen Moeller with the Temple Fire and Rescue Citizens in Action Award. Also, I would like to recognize Deputy Chief Snyder, Thomas Peckall, and Captain Ron Stewart, who are here that participate and support this Junior Fire Cadet Program. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, Chief. Kristen, congratulations, and thank you very much for the work that you did for us and for being a part of our Junior Fire Cadet Program. We really appreciate that. Thank you. Next is a public comment opportunity. Citizens who desire to address the council on any item may sign up to do so prior to the meeting. And this evening, no one has signed up to speak, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Item 4 is the consent agenda, A through N. All items listed under this section consent are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member, and it will be considered separately. Council, item 4A through N, we're going to remove item 4H for individual recommendation. And are there any other items on the consent agenda that you wish to be removed for voting purposes, presentation, or discussion? And if not, I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda, item 4A through N, less item 4H.
Make a motion for approval.
Second. We have a motion, a second, for approval of the consent agenda as recommended. Any further discussion? There being none, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cobb.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis. Councilmember Schneider.
Aye.
Councilmember Morales. Mayor Dennis.
Aye. Item 4H, consider adopting a resolution authorizing the execution of the First Amendment to the 2011 Economic Development Agreement between the City of Temple, Temple Economic Development Corporation, and Panda Temple Power LLC. Mr. Graham.
After further discussions with Panda, we have agreed not to move forward with this amendment. We ask that you take no action on this item.
Very good. Next item on the agenda is item 5. It's a first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance abandoning existing alley with a width of 20 feet and a depth of 300 feet located in Block 35, original town of Temple, between the south right-of-way line of East Avenue B and the north right-of-way line of East Avenue C, and between South 2nd Street and South 4th Street, more fully known in the attached exhibit, shown in the attached exhibit, and reserving a public drainage and utility easement in the entire abandonment rights-of-way. Ms. Lyerly.
Hello, Mayor and council members. Tonight's abandonment is here by the applicant of RGR Incorporated. Today is the public hearing for the first reading, and then we have for the second reading scheduled for May the 2nd. And I have an arrow on the screen, and the little yellow strip is the subject alley. It is just south of East Avenue B and then north of East Avenue C, and it's between South 2nd Street here and then South 4th Street here. The property owner is requesting this alley abandonment to develop a joint-use parking lot for the W.R. Pogue Federal Building in the City of Temple. We notified all utility providers, and there were no objections to this alley abandonment request, with the exception there are some utilities in the alley. We have some buried water and wastewater services, as well as electric or gas. And so as long as we secure an easement, a utility easement for access to that, and then along with the public drainage, then there are no objections. And so a portion of this alley, just to let you know, if this alley gets abandoned, the applicant wants to add a portion of fenced area for some private parking, and so access will be provided for utility providers, and they've already been notified of that, so no objections to that. The broker's opinion of value is at $6,900. And so staff is recommending approval of the requested alley abandonment with reserving a public drainage and utility easement in the entire abandoned rights-of-way. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Thank you, Ms. Lyerly. Council, questions for Ms. Lyerly? There being none, this item requires a public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open at this time. Anyone wishing to speak before the council on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record prior to making your comments. If you'd come to the microphone, please, sir. Thank you. Or the podium, and there's a microphone there. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Adam Lambert. I'm representative of RGR. Essentially, this is a project for us to acquire parking for the Pogue Federal Building. We had a contract and purchased a portion of this land from the city. It was an abandoned facility, and essentially, in part of that contract, we're going to give parking back to the city. So there's approximately 28 spaces that are going to be used and designated for city use only. The rest of the parking will be for the federal government, and then there's also a 5,000-foot warehouse on the facility, which is inside the rail yard. Essentially, I think we've performed what the contract between the city has, with its intent in its entirety, and essentially we have acquired a firm lease with the federal government to keep this facility downtown and keep all the workers for the federal government downtown in the Pogue Building. So the Pogue Building is northwest of this parking lot, and essentially that is who is being serviced by this parking lot. The department with the federal government is USDA, which is the Department of Agriculture, And essentially, they have a lot of cars and vehicles they're going to store inside the rail yard, as well as overflow parking for the occupants of the public building. Essentially, this is a part of our agreement with the lease, and essentially, I think those things were kind of tried to be secured before coming to this point, and essentially, the alley is really just something that we have to close down in order to do this parking. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Mr. Lambert?
What will the fence look like? What will the fence look like?
Essentially, the fence is, I think it's 8 feet tall. I've got a site plan I sent Tammy, and it will be chain link, and in some areas there'll be some fiber mesh, and then on the top one they'll have 3-wire barbed wire. And that's basically a spec that's been required for the securement of the parking lot per the federal government's request.
Thank you. Other question?
Are there going to be any landscaping in that parking lot?
Well, I think if you look, we've got a plan that shows on the site plan where all the trees are going to be provided. I think there's an existing improved parking structure that you can see, which is on the top left of, which would be the top and to the left of the alley. The south half of that side, the west half of that parking lot, has been removed to make room for the warehouse. But essentially, that's really the only area, the top left corner, which would be the northwest corner, is going to remain unchanged because it's existing parking. There's essentially like a 14-foot strip around the rest of the block that would be grass and essentially trees and shrubs per the city requirements for improvements, I guess.
Other questions? Mr. Lambert, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
May I ask another question? What other kind of security would you have there besides barbed wire fence?
Essentially, there's going to be some cameras.
If you could come back up to the
Yeah,
mic,
sure.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
The government really hasn't given me the entire spec or the specifications on their security system, but essentially they're going to be monitoring it. And then there's gate access in 3 locations to the rail yard, and I believe we're trying to coordinate and make sure that the fire department has what they need in terms of, I guess, an access box or something in order to allow them to use the keypad to get in case there's an issue or a fire or anything like that. Other than that, security, I'm not, there's really no other security that I know of, other than parking lot lighting, maybe.
How's the landscaping determined on a parking lot like this? I know a building, there's when you construct a new building, there's requirements to the parking lot, how much landscaping and requirements, and how do we come up with the amount of landscaping on this particular parking lot?
Actually, that is a separate issue with the development after, if the alley is abandoned. And I know I've seen a set of plans that have been going to review, but that would be reviewed through the building permit process whenever they start redevelopment of the area.
Will that come back through council at that point?
I don't believe so. I think that's just through the normal building permit process with redevelopment.
So there's a minimum standard that's required for whatever it is that he's trying to do, and the amount of landscaping required?
That's correct.
Initially, we submitted a permit application for the improvements on the property, and we've gone through the process and realized that the alley has to be abandoned for us to get our final result. So we've gone through the process with planning so far, and I think we've answered most of their questions and made changes to our plans to basically meet all the city's requirements. And those changes are reflected in the current site plan I've sent to Tammy.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of this ordinance abandoning the existing alley as described.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion is second for approval of the first reading on the ordinance. Further discussion? Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunn?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 6, the first reading of public hearing, consider adopting an ordinance authorizing amendments to Ordinance 2010-4413, Temple Unified Development Code, Articles 5 and 11 related to the following land uses: boarding room house, correctional facility, halfway house, institution for alcoholic and narcotic patients, institution, religious, charitable, philanthropic nature, substance abuse treatment facility, social service shelter, and transitional or emergency shelter. Ms. Sent.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. With Mayor motion, this is PZO 51314 relates to Unified Development Code amendments related to Articles 5 and 11, specifically to social service facilities. Just to give you background, these amendments were brought forward as a response to a staff presentation to City Council on February 7th. Staff was asked to provide updates and definitions that are currently not provided in the UDC, identify appropriate districts for these types of facilities we're looking at this evening, and to identify which uses would be better presented with a conditional use permit, and to update Section 5.1 of the use table of the Unified Development Code to reflect those changes. And just generally, we've tried to take some of those definitions and line them up with the state definitions, or at least not encroach into an area that might be protected by the state. We tried to take a look at a few different things as we tried to categorize these different facilities. Are they rehabilitative? How many residents do they serve? How long are the residents there? Are the residents part of the protected class under state or federal law? We looked at some other cities' ordinances to try and see how they classified these different facilities and how they regulated those. Specifically looked at Albany and Arlington and a few other similarly sized cities. What we have this evening represents a mix of what we believe represents some of the city's needs and some of the input that we've had from council about how these facilities should be identified and regulated in the community, and also we believe it reflect some of the state criteria that are in guidance that are handed down to municipalities as they begin to regulate these and continue to regulate these facilities. I'll start with the first new definition. We have this item A, Unified Development Code Correctional Facility. We did not have a definition for it, so we now add a definition for correctional facility. This is a penal facility including buildings and structures that are inhabited by 6 or more persons who are under restraint or security and are generally incapable of self-preservation due to security measures not under the occupant's control. This definition includes, but is not limited to, prisons, jails, reformatories, detention centers, correction centers, and pre-release centers. Under the previous Section 5.1 use table, these were allowed in agricultural, commercial, light industrial, and heavy industrial districts. Staff has proposed that these only be allowed in light industrial and heavy industrial districts. This definition reflects some research into the state definition of identify these types of facilities. And I think at this point I don't identify any within the city limits, but certainly it is in our best interest to define what this is. We proposed 2 terms, these 2 terms in fact. Institution for alcoholic or narcotic patients is now a substance abuse facility, and institution for religious, charitable, and philanthropic nature is now a social service center. The new term or definition, substance abuse treatment facility, is now an outpatient or residential facility that offers treatment for persons with chemical dependency and operates such facility under state license or registration of faith-based, which is a non-medical exempt program. Again, this replaces the term institution for alcoholic or narcotic patients and actually gives it a definition we did not have one before. This use was allowed in agricultural, urban estates, Office 1 with the CUP, Office 2 permitted by right, general retail with conditional use permit, commercial commercial, central area, and light industrial, all permitted by right. Staff has eliminated the allowance in agricultural areas, proposing the elimination of allowing this in agricultural and urban estates, and has eliminated the allowance of this facility without the requisite conditional use permit. So there's a couple changes to this item. A new term or definition of social service shelter. This is a short-term facility. It's a facility providing shelter over a period of 30 days or less for no more than 10 persons. Receiving therapy or counseling from support staff who are present at all times the residents are present for one or more of the following reasons: to help residents recuperate from the effects of drug or alcohol addiction, to help homeless persons or families achieve independence and obtain permanent housing, or to provide temporary shelter for persons who are victims of domestic abuse. This item replaced the charitable and philanthropic institution for charitable and philanthropic nature. It was previously allowed in the GRCS commercial, central area, light industrial, and heavy industrial by right, and all other districts with a CUP. Staff has proposed allowing this in all districts with a conditional use permit, making it slightly more restrictive, eliminating this use by right. In addition to that, staff has added the standards identified in section 5.3.12, which previously only applied to emergency and transitional shelters, and staff proposes adding those conditions also to the social service shelters. These are smaller shelters that typically are associated with faith-based institutions, sometimes on the same premises. These would all have to come before council for review with the conditional use permit process. In addition to whatever requirements council would like to look at those and judge those by, we would also take a look at those against the standards in 5.3.12, which basically identifies some spacing requirements and prohibiting these uses within 1,000 feet of schools, within 1,000 feet of residential uses or alcohol selling establishments, and also prevents these from being within 1,000 feet of another shelter of the same type. In addition to those requirements, 5.3.12 prohibits stacking and out on the sidewalk, and also requires the provision of HVAC. So some other conditions added to these smaller social service shelters. We amended the definition for halfway house. It is now identified as a residential facility for the housing, rehabilitation, and training of persons who are subject to community supervision, parole, or mandatory supervision under state or federal law. This new definition, again, we look to the state to give us some guidance about how they identify halfway houses. These are regulated by the state, and so we tried to line this up with their definition. We have not proposed any changes to the use table about what districts these might be permitted in. That remains the same as it was before. We have a definition for boarding house or rooming house. A building is now a building other than a hotel when lodging and meals for 4 or more persons are served for compensation. And staff has proposed the addition of no rehabilitation services are provided. Again, one of the criteria we looked at in trying to sort which types of facilities would require a conditional use permit and which should not require a conditional use permit was whether or not rehabilitative services are required or provided at the shelter. In this case, they are not. This is just a place for folks to stay when meals are provided and room is provided. And these we are proposing to allow these in the same districts that are previously allowed and without any changes to the use table. Emergency shelter and transitional shelter, these definitions remain the same as they were before. The change to these has come in adding these particular uses in GR and commercial, in addition to allowing that are currently allowed with the conditional use permit. Of course, the additions would also require a conditional use permit. Again, these particular facilities are also subject to the standards identified in section 5.3.12, spacing requirements as listed earlier, and some of the other provisions related to folks lining up outside and HVAC and some of the other provisions. And again, we did change 5.3.12 as mentioned earlier. used to apply just to transitional and emergency shelters. We have now added to that the smaller social service shelters that tend to be faith-based oriented. They're allowed in most districts. And we've added those provisions in 5.3.2 to apply to those districts as well. So there's been an amendment to that section as well. Staff recommends approval of the amendments to Ordinance 2010-4413, the Unified Development Code, Articles 5 and 11. And Ms. Fasada, the Planning and Zoning Commission, I believe it's in your packet, also recommended approval of the proposed amendments unanimously 6-0 at their last meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Ent. Council questions on this item before we go to public hearing? There being none, this item requires public hearing, and I'll declare the public hearing open at this time. Anyone wishing to speak before the council, please come forward and state your name and address for the record prior to making your comments. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of the ordinance modifying the UDC.
Motion for approval?
Second. That motion is second. Further discussion? There being none, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunn?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales? Aye. Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 7 is a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance amending Chapter 12, Fire Prevention and Protection, Article 4 of Section 1210, Article 5, Section 1213, Private Fire Apparatus Access Road and Fire Lanes, and Article 5, Section 1214, Fire Hydrants of the Code of Ordinance of the City of Temple, Texas. And Jonathan, did you want to comment on that one? We're just hold the public hearing on this item. I think the mayor.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mayor. I'd be happy to comment on that. And we have the item posted for first reading and public hearing. From my Chair, I'm perfectly comfortable in allowing the item to go forward and you considering it on first reading. There is some additional staff work that we need to do, that I think we need to do, but I'm more than happy to let the chief address at least the general points of what the item covers, and then you conduct a public hearing, and then again, if you want to consider that tonight on first reading, that's fine. And I think between first reading and second reading, we can resolve the staff issues that I've asked for so that you can just keep it on track and act on it on your second reading if you choose to do so.
Okay, very good. Chief, did you make a presentation on this?
Council, I would just like to point out some of the highlights of what this would consist of. What we were considering would be adopting the ordinance, making amendments to Chapter 12, which is the fire prevention, the fire protection ordinance, code of ordinance for the city of Temple. Some of the things that we were looking at and making changes to was the thing for adjustments to Appendix D, the fire apparatus access road, and also the access, the fire apparatus gates that cross those roads, and also correct some of the wording to mirror that's a part of the codes. So those were some of the main major things that we were looking at. It would also address. It would remove the requirement for the fire lane, the signage to be on one side of the road if the street was less than 32 foot wide. It would also remove the verbiage that if a street is less than 26 feet, then it would require to have signage on both sides of the road. So those are some of the things, and if it was adjusted to the fact that the street was 28 feet wide, then it would not require signs to be posted on that road. So those are some of the things that we were considering there. We've had some conversations with some of the stakeholders And at this point, we are waiting for some written documentation to come back.
Thank you, Chief. Questions of the Chief on this item? Thank you very much, Chief. The being on this item is, again, posted for a public reading on the first public hearing on the first reading, and I'll declare the public hearing open at this time. Anyone wishing to speak before the council on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record prior to making your comments. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. And once again, council, subject to work that staff's doing in the interim between first reading and the second reading, we can consider the approval on the first reading of the amendment to the Fire Prevention and Protection, Article 4.
Make a motion for approval.
We have a motion? Second. And a second. Further discussion? There being none, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Clown?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunn?
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Jones?
Aye. Item 8 is to consider a resolution approving the final plat of High Crest Phase 2, approximately 36.345 acre, 57 lot, 4 block residential subdivision with developer requested exceptions to local regulations related to street width, payment of park fees, slope design, roadway swales, detention and mitigation, minimum number of entrances, and the provision of no parking signs, located on the east side of Bowles Ranch Road, north of FM 439 and Temple's Western ETJ. Ms. Center.
Mayor and Council, this is PFY 1317, the final plat of High Crest subdivision. Again, this is located on the east side of Bowles Ranch Road. The applicant is Turner Associates. On behalf of VW Barge, the Planning and Zoning Commission considered this on March 18th. Again, this subject tract is located probably in the westernmost ETJ of the city. I've kind of given you a general map of where you can find it. It's pretty far west into the ETJ. And then a general area to the east side of Bowles Ranch Road, north of Farm Track Road 439. You can see in the image that Phase 1 has already been completed, and we're looking at Phase 2 of High Crest, which is in the yellow rectangular shape. This plat was deemed complete by the Development Review Committee on February 20th. This is a plat proposing approximately 57 new residential lots. Just generally, there is a 14-inch waterway available on Bowles Ranch Road to serve the site. 439 Water Supply Corporation will be the water service provider at this location. There are on-site sewage facilities proposed for these lots, which typically are about half-acre in size. And there's a 50,000-gallon elevated storage water tank that's going to be proposed for Lot A. Additionally, we have the applicant add a note to the plat that each of the individual septic configurations will need to be coordinated through the Bell County Health Department, and at their request, at Bell County's request. Just a summary of some of the exceptions proposed. The applicant has proposed a 22 and 20 foot and 24-foot wide outer street width for roll collector and roll collector street width, respectively. Typically, the city measures the street widths from the edge of asphalt to the edge of asphalt. The applicant provides the required 22 and 26 requirement, 22 for local street and 26 for roll collector street. But to meet that measurement, they have to include the 1-foot ribbon curb that's on each side of the road. So if we were to just measure the edge of asphalt to edge of asphalt, they would have 20 feet for the road local street and 24 feet for the road collector street. But they have an additional foot if you include the ribbon curb. That's just not how we measure our streets. So they've requested an exception for this particular one. The applicant has asked that the city waive park fees, which would total $12,825, which essentially comes from $225 per dwelling unit, and they've asked that we would waive those fees for the subdivision. The applicant has proposed a 3-to-1 side slope, which is consistent with Phase 1 for the roadside swales. All drainage design and criteria now calls for 4-to-1 slope ratios. The applicant's proposed one entrance to serve the 125 lots. All Unified Development Code design, I've lost it. Our standards call for two entrances for any subdivision that has 75 to 150 lots. Development has proposed placing no parking signs anywhere within the subdivision. We require no parking signs on streets that have pavement of less than 26 feet per Section 12.4 of City Code of Ordinances. And staff recommends approval of that as well. The applicant has asked for an exception to the detention and mitigation requirements identified in the Drainage Criteria and Design Manual. They have proposed extending the same drainage pattern that was utilized in Phase 1, which is the use of roadside swales to convey runoff, and staff has recommended approval of that as well. So just a summary of the exceptions requested in staff's recommendation and sort of the reasons staff has used to come to those recommendations. The proposed 20-foot wide rural local street and the proposed 24-foot wide rural collector street. Staff does recommend approval of this. Again, the applicants providing an additional 1 foot of concrete ribbon curbing on each side. It's not exactly what our design and development standards manual calls for, but it has satisfied what staff would expect, and staff recommends approval of that. Again, also, Bell County is also satisfied with the proposed street width. The proposed 3-to-1 slope for roadside swales. Staff does recommend approval. This continues the pattern in Phase 1, and Bell County has expressed no objection to this proposal. The elimination of no parking signs on the streets. Staff does recommend approval of this as well. The developer has proposed placing restrictions in the covenants of the homeowners association, restricting parking on the sides of the streets. And Bell County has also advised us that this is not an exception, that they do support traffic regulatory signs are highly regulated in the county, and such signs would have to be taken to Commissioner's Court for special approval, and they've indicated that this is that they would prefer that we not require that. So staff has approved that exception, has recommended approval of that exception as well. They have proposed the same drainage design as Phase 1, the use of roadside swales for the conveyance of runoff. This is an exception to the Drainage Criteria and Design Manual. Staff has recommended approval for the following reasons. This subdivision, these streets and the drainage in this subdivision will not be conveyed to the city, nor will the city be expected to maintain these facilities. It does continue the existing drainage pattern of Phase 1, and Bell County has expressed satisfaction with the proposal. The proposed no park fees. Staff has recommended disapproval per UDC Section 8.3.2. There are 3 criteria that staff typically reviews before as policy, but now it has been adopted into the Unified Development Code, that staff would recommend approval of waiving park fees if the proposed subdivision was more than allowed into the ETJ, which this subdivision is, which it creates no more than 10 lots, which this subdivision does not. It creates, in fact, I believe we said 47 lots, and the final one is that if this area has not been identified in the city's municipal annexation plan, which it has not. So it does satisfy 2 of the 3 requirements, but not all 3, and so staff has recommended disapproval of this particular exception request. The final exception request is the exception to the 2 minimum entrance requirement for 125 lots. This is an exception to Design and Development Criteria Standards Manual and relating to residential subdivision entrance access design section, and also Section 12.4 City Code of Ordinances as it relates to fire protection. Staff has not made a recommendation on this particular item. We had hoped to get a letter from both the Sparta Volunteer Fire Department expressing satisfaction with the proposed single entrance, and also from the Bell County Sheriff's Department. We did receive a letter, which I believe is included in your packet, from the Sparta Volunteer Fire Department, but never did receive anything from the Bell County Sheriff's Department. So although at this time, the Fire Marshal does not recommend disapproval, he did not feel comfortable as going as far as recommending approval. Just some other points of consideration. The design and development standards manual calls for 2 entrances for 75 to 150 lots. 125 lots are proposed for this subdivision. So after, I think, 150 lots, we would actually start to look for a third entrance. Again, the Fire Marshal does not recommend disapproval. The Volunteer Sparta Fire Department has said they are satisfied with the single entrance. And again, the county is satisfied with the proposed future road extension of Mountain Rose Road, which the applicant has sort of stubbed out or allowed for that to be continued with some future phase. At this time, the applicant does not own the property to the east, so it was not possible, given the current configuration, for them to incorporate a second entrance, but they have provided a road that would allow for second entrance should they ever acquire the property located on the east, to allow a loop around, so to speak, to 439 and a subsequent second entrance. Planning and Zoning Commission, at its March 18th meeting, voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the final plat of Highcrest Phase 2 with all developer requested exception, except for the exception related to mitigation, detention mitigation. They did not recommend disapproval. They actually did not consider that. That was accidentally not included as part of their packet of exceptions. We will bring that to you tonight as a separate item. It was originally included in the letter. The applicants provided to us, identifying all the exceptions, but was overlooked by staff, which would be me. So we did catch it, and it's being brought to you tonight. So all the exceptions that the Planning and Zoning Commission was presented with, they did recommend approval of. And this, again, is just a summary of the staff's recommendations. And we recommend approval of the UDC Section 8.2 related to the typical street sections for the rural street and the rural collector streets width. Design Development Standards Manual number 2 for the roadside swales, roadside swales, Section 12.4, City Code of Ordinances, IFC 2009, related to parking signs, detention and mitigation requirements, and the alternative design that they've continued from Phase 1. Number 5, disapproval of the following exceptions related to park fees, and number 6, we have no recommendation on the Design Development Standards Manual residential subdivision entrance requirements. And I'd be glad to answer any questions you have on this.
Thank you, Ms. Head. Council, questions before we consider this item? We're ready for a motion for the adoption of a resolution. The motion in any form you wish for the exceptions.
Does this need to be separated with the mitigation issue that you talked about, or?
They can all, because of this evening, council has final authority on all exceptions, so all the exceptions can be considered this evening and determined by City Council.
Would you like to hear from the applicant at all?
I did have one question. Is the city responsible in the ETJ for the drainage and mitigation that was passed down to us from the state that we have just received, as far as the water runoff and through the grass before it gets to its final destination and those types of things? They're not responsible for the ETJ.
Mr. Turley, anything you want to present on this as the applicant's representative?
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council. I'm Victor Turley, 301 North 3rd Street here in Temple. Mr. Bulge is here also. Wanted to thank the staff. You can tell that they've done a huge amount of work. This was brought to our attention because it was actually, UTJ was changed and adopted, I think, in August last year. So we've been working on this project, as you can tell from, I think those are the first phase was 07.
Economic conditions required us to pause or to put it on idle a little bit. Well, now it's, things are turning around. This is a beautiful subdivision. I think it's one of the most beautiful in the western part of Temple. What we're doing is we're following what we've done in Phase 1. We do have detention facilities within the subdivision in Phase 1, which Phase 2 drains into. So your question about detention, really, the water comes to the state, and we got approval through the state through our detention facilities under Phase 1. So I'll be happy to answer any other questions. We would appreciate you looking at what the P&Z did. We spent a lot of time with P&Z and discussed it, and we'd appreciate your supporting P&Z for our request for exception. Well, be happy to answer any questions.
So P&Z did recommend approval, or did approve the parks fee exception that was requested by the applicant. Is that correct, Mr.?
Yes, sir.
Good. Any questions from Mr. Turley? Mr. Turley, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Show the slide.
So again, we discussed in workshop on the parks fees,
Show the slide.
we have a policy that, if we collect those fees, that if in 5 years they are not used for parks, either in that development or within the specified dimension around the development, then they're returned to the applicant or to the development. And as you heard city manager say in workshop, it is certainly not within our immediate plans or within a 5-year plan to, of course, annex into that part of our ETJ, and it's far enough away from any other parks that we would be responsible for improving that it's not likely that those fees would be used in those 5 years. So I think that went into P&Z's thinking, would be my guess, as to that went into P&Z's thinking as to why they granted that exception as well, in addition to all those that the staff recommended. Entertain a motion on the plat, approving the final plat on High Crest Phase 2.
I'd like to make a motion to approve all the staff recommended exemptions, but also include exempting park fees as well. It's not recommended by the staff, but I recommend we do. That's my motion too.
Second. We have a motion, a second, for approval of the final plat of High Crest Phase 2 with all exceptions as requested by the applicant.
And Russell, just for clarification, you're including the...
Yes, the
Second entrance.
one entrance.
And also detention and mitigation requirements.
I wasn't considered.
So those are all the ones that are requested by the applicant.
That's right.
And that's your motion.
Okay, sticking to it.
Very good. Thank you. Any further discussion? We have motion and a second. There being none, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud? Mayor Pro Tem Dunn? Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales? Mayor Jones?
Aye. And item 9 is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing a Chapter 380 agreement between the 380 Economic Development Agreement between the City of Temple, Temple Economic Development Corporation, and Buc-ee's Limited. Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. We discussed this at length in our workshop, and so I'll go through this fairly quickly. The item we have before you is a resolution that would authorize a Chapter 380 agreement with Buc-ee's Limited and the city and TDC. And Chapter 380 agreements allow us to grant incentives to developers to increase property tax and create jobs. The agreement proposes is an inducement to Buc-ee's to build a travel center in Temple. They are looking at a site at the North Loop 363 and I-35, the southeast corner. They would propose to build a 60,000 square foot travel center. It's geared towards cars and light trucks rather than a truck stop, and includes both the sale of gasoline and a very large 60,000 square foot retail, everything from food products to clothing, pretty much you name it, they sell it. And just last month, you designated that area as a tax abatement reinvestment zone, but that consideration of a tax abatement agreement is not part of this 380 agreement. Under the agreement, Buc-ee's agrees to acquire what is a 30-acre site there. About 17 acres of that they would use for this travel center. They would commit to building a 60,000 square foot travel center there, similar to the existing ones in Bastrop and very much like the one in New Braunfels. They estimate their investment is about $16 million to build this travel center, and they commit in the agreement to employ not less than 150 full and part-time employees. Under the agreement, commitment by the city is to grant a incentive for 10 years that is based on or indexed to a percentage of the sales tax that we would receive from that site. So if it's performance-based in the sense that if we would be rebating 75% of the sales tax that their sales generate. So if they generate a lot of sales, they get a better benefit. If it doesn't, their benefit goes down. We would also commit to building water and wastewater infrastructure for that site and adjoining properties, which is already in our master plan. In addition to that, TDC is part of the agreement. They have agreed to make a one-time incentive payment of $500,000 to Buc-ee's to offset some of the development cost, and that would be due at the time of issuance of the CO by the city. And be glad to answer any questions you might have, and I think the city manager's worked on this as well, and he may have some additional comments.
There's also an ad valorem tax payment.
Yeah, and that is not part of this agreement. We will be bringing that forward at the next agenda meeting.
Mr. Blackburn, any comments?
Just would like to thank a lot of several folks who have worked on the project. As all of these projects are, it's a team effort. There's no one person or one entity really that helps make these things happen, and they don't just happen. They happen because of a lot of work by a lot of folks. But I want to thank Jonathan and legal folks and Tracy in finance and TDC. I think Charlie and Elizabeth are in the audience tonight, but TDC is always a key player in these projects and in the work that we do. So all of those folks and some that I haven't named were involved in the project that spanned many months to get us to this point tonight. So happy to recommend favorable consideration of this for council.
Thank you, Mr. Blackburn. Council, any questions for Mr. Blackburn and Mr. Graham? And if not, I'll entertain a motion on the Chapter 380 Economic Development Agreement between the City of Temple, TEDC, and Buc-ee's Limited.
Make a motion for approval.
Second. Motion and a second for approval of the Chapter 380 agreement. Please describe. If there's no further question, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Quown.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Schneider.
Aye.
Councilmember Morales. Aye. Mayor Jones.
Aye. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our meeting for this evening. Thank you very much for your participation, your attendance. We are adjourned. Charlie, sorry, it's after 6:01. Gee, the best. I know you committed to a number of people. I am. You did not pull down. You did. You guys have a great trip up north next week. Grab one. Yeah, I wish I'm really disappointed about one thing. She's over there. She's talking to Shannon. That's what. Almost didn't see her. Well, I didn't sit you down.